I often can tell how a business is doing in my area by the amount of CVs that I get coming into my inbox. I've got a company that I immediately, all the alarm bells went off with me last week because I received 3 CVs unsolicited from people in that organization. So I know that there's something going on in that organization right now that's causing the people to send out those CVs.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop, It's Time to Become a Coffee Consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 3 of a 5-part series, which you should think of as the second part to last week's series with Heliana Georgalis from Moplico. We are talking about the coffee crisis that's happening. And Matt Toogood is joining me from Raw here in Dubai. And we are talking in this episode as a part of the series, which is about the coffee crisis. We're talking about navigating this crisis internally. So Matt, what are your ideas about how people should look at navigating this crisis with the assumption that somebody that's listening to this has already understood that there is a crisis that's either emerging or is already happening for their business? How do they navigate that crisis internally?
So I want to say, look, I don't have all the answers. I can tell you what we do and what we have done in how we've done our business. We haven't got everything right. We've made some horrendous mistakes over the last 18 years or 17 years. We've been very close to the brink of shutting down a couple of times and for different reasons. These are the things that we know that work. The number one thing is that the only person that you can rely on is yourself. You are the only person who is going to wake up in the morning and make that decision to go into work. So, whilst, I am blessed to be surrounded by an amazing team at Raw, at the end of the day, the buck stops with me and Kim, and we have to do it. So for me, the first thing I want is visibility. The first thing that if I don't know where my next dirham is coming from, I'm in trouble. So I'm not ashamed to say this, we ran this business for probably the first 5 or 6 years on an Excel spreadsheet, and it was based purely as a cash flow forecast, right? So it was, what money is coming in, what money do I need to spend, and when do I need to spend it? And that meant that we could make decisions based on what money that we're projecting. Obviously, as your business gets bigger, you've got to take those economies of scale and maximize them. So, we've never, up until a couple of years ago, had the luxury of being able to buy from green storage areas in the city. So everything we were buying at origin. So we knew that we had X amount of months until we'd actually see that coffee from when we paid for it. I know that it takes 9 months and 22 days until I, on average, receive money back from coffee that I purchased, because we look at that. We make sure that we understand where our money is coming from. I don't spend more than 10 minutes a day on it. It's not something that I, wake up and it's the first thing I do. But with my finance manager, it's something that we would sit down and discuss at least once a week, what's coming up in 9 months' time, not what's coming up tomorrow, what's happening in 9 months' time. The other thing I do is we have this a large cafe, which is our show. This is how we show people that, what we do and how we do it. And we hope that people like what we're doing. And so they trust us to give them advice on how to run their own business in a similar way. But it's amazing how much information your customers will give. If you take 5 minutes to stop and sit with them and find out what they're doing, and they are the ones who'll go, hey, listen, I just want to, I don't want to upset you, but I want to tell you this. And that's the most valuable information you can get. It's a lot of these things, I take for granted now, but I really didn't think about them when I moved to the Middle East. And everybody's environment is slightly different. But one of the things that I say to people, if you're coming to the Middle East, is that, it's a 9-month-a-year season. We don't operate for 12 months a year here. One that we've just entered into the period right now where it's quite hot. We will, within the next couple of weeks, I'm sorry, Lee, to say this, but the temperature does not drop below 40 degrees Celsius day or night.
I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, I'm going to turn your AC on. We have a period of time where people, our sales drop significantly. We have a huge Muslim community who we are privileged to have as customers during Ramadan every year for a month. They, during fasting, we're not open during the hours that they're eating and drinking. So, that's a huge amount of our business that goes. And because we're a B2B trader, a huge amount of our customers are affected. So it's a double rating effect. It's actually okay to admit that you do need to actually spend the time understanding where your customer is going to come from. When is school holidays? Because here, when the school holidays happen, potentially half our customers go back to their home countries. Most of the population here are expats. So, planning around those sorts of things is incredibly important. But then the other thing is you can't save yourself to prosperity. You cannot hammer your suppliers to the point where they're giving you lower prices without sacrificing quality.
Can I ask you something on that? So a big problem that people are experiencing with regards to their suppliers is that as their expenses go up and as the cost of living crisis bears heavily on a business, they're unable to pay their suppliers. Now, you guys have a lot of a B2B business. What do you say to people who are experiencing their customers who are B2B customers and who are not able to pay them?
Fire your customer. You've got to find customers who have the same value set as you. If you, like this, the amount of times where you see a piece of business that you go, oh my goodness, wouldn't that be great? They're doing so much business. It would be great to supply them. But then you realize it's actually just a bad business deal, right? So, if your customer is not going to pay you on time, they don't respect you as a business. They're never, ever going, it's never going to be a good relationship. If you're having to have conversations about how much credit that they need, why do they need credit? Are they going to use your product to bankroll their customer? Because I don't know anywhere that I can go and buy a coffee and say, listen, I'm going to pay you in 90 days or 160 days for that cup of coffee, right? So my customers are receiving within 10, 14 days of me supplying that kilo of coffee, they're receiving 70 or 80 cups of coffee at 15 times the margin that I'm making in cash into their banks. So why can't they pay me on time? And if you're unable to have a conversation with your customer like that, to say, listen, this is my price point. This is what I'm going to give to you. This is when you need to pay me in order for my business to be successful. If you're not able to have that conversation with your customer, then maybe you're not talking to the right customer, because it's if you are probably going to find that that customer is just using you as a commodity that they don't really care about. They just want something good. I also have this really strange thing when my sales team come in and there's been, for example, a customer that we haven't been successful with in the past for whatever reason. And I get a salesperson comes in and says, "Oh, we're going to land that customer." I look at it with a little bit of like, why all of a sudden is that customer coming to me? And you know what? 90% of the time you find out that they've got a cash problem. And so they're having to, they're switching suppliers because they know that, it's going to be 3 months until, we complain that they haven't paid their bill. And, if you're running your own business, that could take you out. That could cripple you. So you have to be, you have to have a mutual trust with your customer and yourself. If there's not that mutual trust, don't go into business with them.
Especially now. And the reason I say especially now is because what's happening right now, folks, is other people's gambling debts are going to be yours to pay if you don't take care of your relationships, even with your old customers. And we're talking specifically B2B here. If you have someone who's buying your roasted coffee and you're not making sure that they're paying on time, the stress that they're having on their business is going to have a problem, is now going to become your problem and be a heavier weight on your own business. So navigating the problem internally is going to require you to really keep to have visibility on what's happening with your customer, your B2B customer, as well as your B2C customer. And that's going to be really, really important. Now, Matt, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is from a staffing perspective. How do you navigate this crisis, or is there any reason to consider things from a staffing perspective?
I saw a quotation someone made, years ago, and it said, "What happens if I train my staff and they get really good and then they leave me?" And the opposite to that is, what happens if you don't train your team or your staff and they stay? Right? Empowering your team and training them to be the best that they can be is the number one thing that you're going to is going to cause the most success in your business, because they are the day in, day out people who are interfacing and talking to your customer. So the more you empower your team with training, the more that you are going to be successful. And it's everything. If you're running a cafe, it's everything. Your team is you. As a business owner and operator, boy, that's frustrating. Because the moment that you get somebody up to the standard that you know is going to impress your customer, the next person comes along and offers them a little bit more money and they go and work for them, and you've done all the hard work to train them up to get them to there. So people are quite happy to pay more money because they don't have to spend 6 months or a year or 2 years or 3 years training that person up to the standard. And so they get poached. That's really, really frustrating. But I tell you, if you end up with a group of people who are not being approached on a regular basis by your competitors, then you aren't doing it right. And yes, the amount of money that people get paid is important. That's really important. But every single time when we go into talking with our team and the opening conversation is about how much you're going to pay me, it's not about money most of the time. Money is important, but it's not about money. It's about do they know that they're going to keep their job? I often can tell how a business is doing in my area by the amount of CVs that I get coming into my inbox. I've got a company that I immediately, all the alarm bells went off with me last week because I received 3 CVs unsolicited from people in that organization. So I know that there's something going on in that organization right now that's causing the people to send out those CVs. So I think that, it's, again, these are all sort of cliche things. It's you hire once and, finding good people and spending the time, just like you investigate and you talk with your customer and you hire your customer, you should, really spend the time understanding with your people who are going to be the make or break for your business. What do they need in order for them to have success in their life? And often it is giving them the ability to learn, by giving them an environment that they're allowed to learn and they're allowed to grow. Being direct and honest, and I'm lucky I have Kim. Kim is very much the people person in our organization, but she's also a business operator. So she's also someone who will pull somebody up for not behaving correctly for the business. At the end of the day, I don't consider myself an owner of a business. I'm an employee of Raw Coffee Company. And, I'm just one of the 78 people who come to this office every day. And, equally, what I need out of this business is not necessarily cash tomorrow. It's a lot of other things. And so my team are exactly the same. So that's what we focus on, is giving them things that are not, it's not teaching them how to make coffee. It's teaching them how to look after their house budget, because no one's taught them how to save money, or it's teaching them, what's the right deodorant to wear when it's 50 degrees outside.
I love that.
Yeah, you laugh, but it's important.
We've all worked with people who didn't know how to use any deodorant, so I'm absolutely in agreement with that.
Yeah.
So, we're now going to wrap up this episode. Join us in the next episode, folks, as we talk about how we're to navigate this whole crisis externally. And that's something that we'll tell you more about in the next episode. So join us for that. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.